So mental health is an interesting discussion, and I have just about 30 minutes, and we are not going to cover all of it, but we'll cover a lot today. There's 3 types of you staring back at me. Number 1, you struggle with this just like I do. And for many of you, you've never told a soul, anyone, never told a parent, never told a family member. This is your journey. For some of you, it's people you care about. It's a boyfriend, girlfriend, a parent, friend. It's just someone around you. And I will say we could begin a discussion on just prevention. There's an author named Frederick Douglass who once said, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," and I would add in, and women. I would much rather, and I'm not calling you children, I'm just saying it's easier to work with a younger generation, and then maybe we won't have as many issues as we get older. This image was my life. It was a million roads in a million directions. I suddenly find myself at home. I would be walking a few doors down, and every time I would, my hands would shake. I'd begin to panic. Interesting, as someone who has talked on mental health, I was then dealing with mental health, and in would come people into my home, and they'd sit across from me on my couch. If you've ever read the book of Job, like Job's friends, and they would often say, "Have you tried?" And if I just put a line, they would ask, "Have you tried?" And the first thing they would ask is, "Have you tried Jesus?" And I would say, "What do you mean by that?" And they're like, "You know, Jesus." And I would say, What does that mean? And they would say, I don't know. And then they would leave. And then I would sometimes pray and sometimes cry and go, "Jesus, have I not tried you enough? What does that mean?" The next person would come in and say, "Have you tried vitamin D?" And I'd be like, wow, vitamin D and Jesus are very different things. But I would check my vitamin D. And the next would say, "Have you tried running?" I remember once someone said, "Have you tried running?" And I said, "I haven't left my house in 5 months. I haven't made it to my mailbox, which is 107 steps away from my house." And they looked back at me and said, "But have you tried running?" It was such a disconnect. And every time they would leave, I would feel worse, and I would feel like I don't know what to do. And then one day my wife said, "What would you do if you ever spoke again?" And I said, there's a term called pragmatic. I want a structured way we can all look at getting better, whatever that might be. And that kind of began this conversation. So we're going to look at 4 things. We're going to look at a bunch of other things around this, and I will start with a quote from a book, and any book that I promote is on my website. At the very end, I'll tell you how to find any of these. Stephen Grekvich once said, "Herein lies one of the most pervasive misunderstanding regarding mental illness. It's that God spares this kind of pain and suffering from those with deep and abiding faith. I am unwell, but I'm not unwell because I don't have a deep and abiding faith in Jesus. But I'm still unwell." There's nuance and discussions here. Henry Cloud, a Christian author, speaker, says, "If you're filled with the Spirit, you'll always be happy, in no pain or have any struggles." And then he paused and said, "Well, that can't be farther from the truth." We may love Jesus, but we still live in a world and we still struggle with many things. When we don't understand mental health or mental illness, we'll talk about this in a minute, we don't understand the basics of how to help people who are here today or even not here today because of social anxiety and other things. So I want to give some definitions. The first is mental health. Now this is from the World Health Organization, but let me give you kind of a synopsis in easier to read language. Good mental health is the ability to cope with life, to grow in your potential, and positively impact the world around you. Every one of you sitting here today has mental health, just like each of you also has physical health. And this would be kind of a high or low. Then we have mental illness. Now, mental illness refers to conditions that affect how we think, how we feel, how we believe, how we interact with any aspect of life. And this is defined from professionals. I'm a psychotherapist. I can't diagnose, but a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a medical doctor can. One of our big worries these days, though, is people, not just young people, people diagnosing themselves with mental illnesses due to TikTok, YouTube. I'm at a talk and a young girl walks up, 16 years of age. She says, so I have bipolar. I said, wow, that's big. Tell me your journey. Where did you get diagnosed? And she said, well, I wasn't diagnosed. She said, I went to, I saw a video on YouTube, and in my head I'm like, uh-oh. And she said, yeah, the video said if you're happy sometimes and sad others, you have bipolar. And I'm like, or you're human. Because every one of you Every single one of you. And I mean, we're at 11:33. I bet almost all of you have felt happy or sad in this moment. I had my iced vanilla latte. When it was finished, I felt a little sad. Anyone with me? Like, there's just moments that are happy and sad in life. It just means you're a person. And I would also say, though, we're also trying to always look towards pathology. Pathology is saying something is anxiety or depression as opposed to normal. If there's a continuum with anxiety, normal all the way through to a problem. So normal anxiety, public speaking. For some of you, if it was your first day on a worship team, you'd be up here and your hand would be shaking. If you had to open in prayer or come up and speak, they say public speaking is worse than death. And I always say, how do you know that? No one actually knows that, but it shows you how much we fear it. New date, first job, exams, new school, grade 12s heading on to whatever it might be next year, grade 8s going to grade 9, whatever it might be in life. But the concern is when you're sitting at home watching TV and for no reason you're like, I can't breathe, or I'm feeling tingly, or I'm dizzy. Depression's the same. There's regular, normal life, a loss, you've experienced a death, you've lost a job, a relationship. It could just be the winter months, or maybe it's just the blah season. Doesn't mean you have clinical depression, but when you cross a line at some point and you don't experience joy anymore, you feel down all the time, you feel like you have a wet, weighted blanket on you and life feels heavy. When you hit these things, this is when we get other people involved. You talk to the people in your, is it tribes? Am I using the right terminology? Talk to your tribe leaders, your parents and pastors, and sometimes that might need to be handed off to a counselor to walk through these things. There are so many ways we begin to journey with mental health. Predisposition just means that this comes from our families. Now, I would also say often this comes, if we have anxious parents, sometimes they create anxious people. And so like if they're anxious, you might be a bit anxious. Traumatic events, people experiencing homelessness, abuse, neglect, abandonment, war, PTSD, the list goes on. Burnout and breakdown, which is me. Isolation or loneliness, chronic unwellness. We as the church are often good with short-term things, but what do we do with long-term unwellness? Substance use. I often put this under an umbrella of self-harm. We do things like we drink or we look at pornography or other things to try to get beyond overwhelming feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Social media and dopamine. We'll chat about this afternoon. Social media use, and this is my media talk from this afternoon, will decrease well-being and will increase depression and anxiety. Now, if I today took my phone and I threw it away, I am not getting better. My issue is not about social media or other things. We do believe statistically it's between 25 and 40% of anxiety today is literally social media based. And this afternoon we'll go through all of these things. You don't need to write them down. We're doing this afternoon. And I do just say, what we see today worries us. We touch our phones almost 3,000 times a day. For most of you, your phone hasn't been out of arm's reach in how many years? The one thing I laughed recently is someone said, well, I bought this pop socket and I actually stick it in my shower when I go in the shower. If you can't go into the shower without having your phone, I think we've crossed the line of we might be in trouble. Like if there's a line, I don't know where it is, that might be on the other side. Back to this, social media and dopamine, every time your watch taps you, a notification comes on your laptop or your phone, you've just had a dopamine hit to your brain. What do 500,000 dopamine hits do a human as you get notification after notification? We don't know. But we're all the experiment and we're all seeing that this isn't going well. We have lots of pressure and stress. We don't eat well. We don't sleep well. Women with postpartum, 50 to 75% of women after having a baby have the blues and 15 to 20% have postpartum depression. Most have never actually addressed it. And then we have concussions or how you're parented. In my parenting talk, I talk about if we have parents who overfunction, we may begin to underfunction. This happens, by the way, in dating relationships, in work relationships, but from this, if we're overfunctioning and you're underfunctioning, it creates like anxiety as you head off to the workplace or college or university. We have had staggering increases in these things, and I'd give you a great discussion. Why? Are we diagnosing quicker? Are we just saying there's things more? Are we noticing it? And there's a whole bunch of different things. I would put forth that we give a different set of rules to mental health than we do for physical health. Person's throwing up in a toilet. Have you tried, not having the flu? Said to no one ever with the flu. Said to every single person with anxiety. Have you tried, not being anxious? Like if we could think our way out of this, we would have. Nobody wants anxiety. And the one on the end, I don't think it's healthy you have to take medication every day just to feel normal. Don't you worry, it's changing you from who you really are. The person's giving themselves an insulin shot. Said to no one who struggles with these kinds of things, and again said to people, anyone struggling and looking at taking medications, can we just start with a foundation? We can all look at getting better. And part of this is we have different sets of rules, and even the people who come into me as a therapist, it's only my Christians who say, well, what about medication? And often they say this, I love Jesus, but what about medication? No one's ever said that for heart medication or other things. From asthma to sleeping pills, no one cares. Here's what I mean. If you have asthma, you have a blue Ventolin inhaler. If you can't breathe right now, you take 2 puffs. If you don't, we'll be calling a paramedic. An ambulance will come by and put a big mask on you. But the moment we hit depression and anti-anxiety medications, we become very polarized in discussions. Now, I hope you never have to take medications. I think we also too quickly go to medications as opposed to sleep and exercise and nutrition, but if you need meds, it's okay. I told a story in the last service that I got diagnosed a number of years ago with Lyme disease. And Lyme is a bit of a nightmare. Everyone is different, it's hard to diagnose, it's hard to actually deal with it, and so I'm being put on massive amounts of medications. And so I posted to my social media world, hey, can you pray for me? I gotta go on meds, I don't do well with meds. Lots of, it was literally thousands of people writing me. It was very humbling. Churches saying they're praying for me. I went on and posted the exact same message. This was 7 years ago for Lyme, 13 years ago, after my breakdown, after nothing working for a long period of time. I was going on meds for anxiety and depression. And I posted the same message online. I gotta go on meds, I'm not good with meds, will you pray for me? And again, thousands of prayer requests, but no one saw the private messages, the private ones, where people wrote me and said this, if you take a single medication, you're not a Christian anymore. First off, I kind of think, you don't know the basics of Christianity. We believe in the Trinity and the resurrection. It's not or taking meds or not. That is so far down. Now, I am seeing a new trend, which is this. These might be minors, but if you don't believe the minors, how could you ever believe the majors? And this is not a great discussion. I call this whack-a-mole. You ever been to a fair in the summertime and there's that machine and the mole pops up and you see someone pound it down? It takes everything in many of us to even begin having discussions and conversations, and sometimes it's just like this whack-a-mole. If you have to take medications, it's okay. And there's actually some more modern science with this. This is in a gene, not like genes, but gene. They actually send you a kit, you scrape your cheek cells with a thing, and then you spit into a vial, it's gross, you twirl it up, mail it back, and they send back a green light, yellow light, red light. Yes, we don't know, no. So how do you know if you're struggling or your friends are struggling? We could spend all day on this, and I'm not going to go through them all. There are so many things. I mean, the big ones might be not able to function, not able to shower, eat, get out of bed, go on a walk, anything. These are just things that might be things we're struggling with. Apathy, loss of desire to do things. Sometimes if you're in grade 10, 11, 12, we begin dropping out of swimming or dance or basketball or whatever we play because we want to volunteer at a camp, or we've just been tired of doing 2 practices a week for 10, 15 years. Other ones, some people get involved in doing things, again, self-harm. We do things to get beyond our overwhelming feelings, thoughts, and emotions. And also, we scroll 8-second reels again and again and again, as opposed to facing and turning towards our issues. People say what if, or comments like, I'm so stupid, I'm so worthless, our grades might drop, but the number one thing is just this, there's no sign. I cannot look around the room and say, okay, you're good, you're not, you're good, you're not. I struggle in here, I struggle in here, and there's a mind-body connection, I struggle in here. And for the most part, on my bad days, if you said to me, how are you doing? I will look you right in the eye and say, good. We're not even honest with how we're doing, which is why I loved, during COVID, one of the only things I loved was the check-ins. People did these online check-ins and we'd had to do emojis, and your parents would all be saying what is that emoji? What is this emoji? We had to learn them all as adults. But this is checking in. When you ask someone these days, how are you doing? Ask them twice. How you doing? Good. How are you really doing? How's your week? Oh, let me tell you. It's funny how it quickly shifts to that second kind of thing. So what do you do if you're struggling? What are your first baby steps? Not wishful thinking, not avoidance, which is the number 1 and 2 things in North America we do as adults and as students. I would say this is chaos. I do not mind someone telling me, have you tried? But when people make an assumption, if you know someone and they took vitamin D and it was the only thing, it doesn't mean everyone needs to take vitamin D and it will be the only thing. There's such a nuance here. I love body, mind, and soul. I do. Each of you, by the way, likes one of these things more. I'm a kinesiology major, phys ed major. So I'm really big on the body. And some of you are really big on the mind. You're like, I like psychology. And even the book of Romans talks about the renewing of your mind. I'm going to take that out of context. I acknowledge that. And then we're faith-based people. I was in a talk and I put this up and a man yells out, that's satanic. That's not good for any speaker. When you have anxiety, that's really bad. And so I'm like, I'm going to take a breath. So I took a breath and I looked off on the wall, and in a huge tapestry, it says, meeting the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of our community. And I'm like, huh. I said, that's satanic? And the guy went, oh, my bad. And he sat down. That was the end of that discussion. It was just weird on every level. I like this. Why do I like this? Because you all can do this. And we don't know what our answers are, but we can all walk through this together. Your issue might be physical. I think the doctor is a good kind of beginning gatekeeper. We're going to walk through other things in a minute. It might be emotional, psychological. Go see a therapist, but begin even chatting with people and pastors and friends. And here's where the word is nuance. I do not say it might be spiritual. It is unbelievably uncommon that the answer to mental illness is in your faith. But my faith is the foundation of my life. It is the bedrock of everything. That is what we build life off of, whether we get better or not. And I would say for someone like me, I've been unwell for 14 years. For 14 years, and in the last 4, this Oura Ring has told me how little deep sleep I get. I get between 3 and 15 minutes a night on average. It's not enough. My body responds with anxiety, and I begin my next day. And 54 doctors have yet to figure out I get called an anomaly. I don't think I'm ever going to get better, and I'm not speaking some weird spiritual thing over myself. I've just been unwell for a long time. And if I never get better, it's okay. God is still God. If I get better tomorrow, God is still God. Someone shouted out at one of my talks, what about healing? Can God heal? God can do anything God wants to do. Do all people who pray for healing get healed? No. Do most get healed? No. What do we do with that? Because if all we do is we come back to the person who's unwell and say, it's your fault, you didn't read enough, pray enough, you didn't do enough. That's victim blaming. I do not like this. Ann Voskamp's an author. She says this, miracles are never a function of anyone's goodness, their worthiness, or their earnestness. Miracles are always about the mysteriousness of his ways. So there's this tension. Every day I pray for healing, every day I pray for sleep. Every day I also do the things I need to do to be as healthy as I can be. I kind of view it this way. This is a toolbox. Most of us don't have actual toolboxes, but this is a toolbox. I call this your faith. This is what I want you to do. Build a bigger toolbox. Then into the toolbox, we put tools. And everyone who just tilted their head, you'll now remember whatever you looked at first. That's actually an interesting thing. But here's what it is. In the toolboxes are tools, and we have a bigger toolbox, a better faith, and lots of tools. Let me tell you about my journey. This won't be yours, maybe. I've done all of these kinds of things. I'm not currently on medication, even though if I'm honest, in my laptop bag, I actually have Ativan. It's a small pill. If I'm about to have a panic attack and I need to speak, I take it. It's highly addictive. I'm very careful, but if I need it, it's okay. Because if I have to work and I have to do something, but all of these things, but look at the big 3, exercise, sleep, and food. Exercise is medicine. Sleep is medicine. Food is medicine. Exercise, bar none, is the best thing on the planet for prevention of mental health struggles, or if you are struggling. As a therapist, I start with this. How's your exercise? Most people go, I don't exercise. I don't care what you do. I like spin class, I do stretching classes, I lift weights, I do whatever, it doesn't matter. But walking is one of my favorite things for anyone because we can all do it. Sleep. We say we value sleep, but we don't. Sleep's the foundation of everything. You ever been up till 2 in the morning and then tried to have morning devotional time with Jesus and you can barely keep your eyes awake? And then food. Food is often the culprit or the cure. They took grade 4 kids with anxiety. All they did was increase their diversity of foods. I remember going, diversity of foods, that's an interesting statement. And all they said was, eat the rainbow of colors. So if you're having a salad, you're going to have green peppers, orange peppers, red peppers, right? Add different colors and different things. 40% reduction in anxiety. 40% by just changing diet. The Bible is filled with physical analogies, by the way. Run the good race. Your body is the temple. While we're doing that, we're doing this. And this is where my counselors have helped me realize that there is a path forward. What you're going through may be a season, but it's not the rest of your life. I remember with emotions, anybody watched America's Got Talent before? I'm watching it one day on my own, and I was like 15, 16-year-old girls playing guitar. She gets the golden buzzer. If you know this, like confetti comes down and she's crying at the front and I have tears pouring down my face and I'm like, what is going on right now? I had a horrible anxiety day. And for me, that's how it kind of came out. Some people get angry, some do different things, but help and support for my emotions. And while we're doing this, we build our faith. And I put this like bar over spiritual disciplines. We pray, all the things we have up here, like most of these are building and growing our faith. Our circumstances will never alter the character of God. God is God and we are not. In these moments, how about we just say, Jesus, let me see you. Teach me what you want me to learn in this moment. This is building our faith. And then we deal with whatever is going on. While we're doing this, when I'm in a public school or a public business, I have to use this slide, but these things are still good for us as Christians. Well-being, purpose, even volunteering. By the way, I love coming in and watching everyone do all the different jobs, and it's all students. I just love that. But volunteering, my wife and I, once or twice a month, go to a place in the next city to me called The Refuge. It's for teenagers experiencing homelessness, not adults. I hand a 15-year-old a plate of spaghetti. When I'm having a bad day, there's a reframing and changing of my mind when I hand someone living on the street who's some of your ages. Gratitude, if you're one of my clients as a therapist, every day I ask you to play 3 good things. What are 3 things you're thankful to God for today? And do it every single day. Friends and family, we as the church, one of the great things we have to offer is people. People. That's why I love you all coming in and we're chatting, and there's something so powerful and protective about that. Mindfulness is just breathing, and the spoons analogy would be, you have so many spoons to give out to whatever you're doing during the day, but if you're unwell or struggling with mental health, you have less spoons, so be careful what you give things to. How does your faith play a role? Do we trust God is who he says he is? If I never get better, God is still God. If I get better tomorrow, God is still God. And I'm not going to walk through this, but I love this. This is some of the debates we begin to think of the why. He says there's 3 big ones and there's 2 you just have to address. Number 1 is Genesis 3. We are caught up in a fallen world and we are deeply affected by it. Number 2, we live with the effects of others' sins. My best friend growing up was killed by a drunk driver. We've lived with that for 19 years, and so has his wife. He didn't choose that. Someone else made a really bad decision. We live with our own sinful nature. When I was speaking 275 to 300 speaking dates a year, married with 2 kids, doing a master's degree in Chicago, everyone around me said, Brett, slow down. And I said, I'll be fine. And I was wrong. And if I could just go back, now here's the fallacy in my thinking. I wish I could go back and do it different. But you don't have to be doing 300 speaking dates a year to have a breakdown. You can have a breakdown in normal life. So I probably would still have had a breakdown. But I still wish I could go back and try it again. And then there's 2 verses, we either sometimes talk about, and he just says, this isn't mental illness and stuff, but we just need to address it. I mean, there's a spiritual realm. We talk about things too much or not enough. I'm at a talk and my water bottle is up like this, and I moved my legs and I knocked my water bottle off, and someone said after, what do you think what do you think Jesus was trying to tell you? And I'm like, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I knocked a water bottle. Sometimes we head too much down this pathway. And then there's verses about God's discipline and discipleship. Those I do not put into this category, and neither does he. Thomas Merton's prayer of abandonment, I posted all around my office. The idea of this, God, I have no idea what's going on, but I trust you. I mean, I paraphrased a bigger thing. And it was a few years ago, someone told me to read the Beyond Suffering Bible. This is a woman, some of you might know, some of you won't, named Joni Eareckson Tada. It's actually an entire Bible with call-outs and discussions on suffering. And when you're journeying and struggling, there's something about realizing, connecting. Even me sharing my own anxiety thing, that you know that you're not alone, is something incredibly powerful. So what did I need? I needed someone to sit with me and someone to listen to me. But what I got were things that in my life, and as I've talked to thousands and thousands of people on this, they found hurtful. So I'm going to put up a page. We've all done these things. It's Maya Angelou who once said, do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. So this is not about condemnation. It's just about, I would encourage you not to do these things anymore. Everything happens for a reason. I don't believe this is true. I don't believe this is biblical. This is actually more Islam than it would be Christian faith. Even if you have a differing view on this, if you come up to someone and say, everything happens for a reason, what are they going to say? What reason? And you will go, I have no idea. And they walk away. Is that person helped or hurt? The interesting thing for me is I hear from almost everyone I speak to when I travel. At every speaking date, someone says this: the church has hurt me more than it's helped me. And there are little things that we can switch and change to not have that. Don't be anxious about anything out. That verse, by the way, that's not clinical modern day anxiety. The word is actually more worry. But even being a worrier is not something we can just change. I'm not going to go through all of these. If you need any help, let me know. Someone once said that mental illness is a non-casserole illness, non-food illness. Like if you have a broken leg, like I fell off my bike and the doctor just said everything here. That's how, I broke literally almost everything. Within days, people are sending the meal train through. When I'm home with mental health struggles, do you want to guess how many meals came? None. God won't give you more than you can handle is not in the Bible. It's not. God won't tempt you more than you can handle is in the Bible. 2 Corinthians 1:8, Paul and his companions were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Translated, paraphrased to, we have way more than we can handle. When we have more than we can handle, we lean back on our God. And we do that with the people around us. But all these things here, I just say don't say them. Here's what you can say. How are you today? That one change of today is so helpful. My favorite is a friend of mine who says, I got 5 minutes, give me a health update. Say I'm praying for you, but actually do it. This is not like we should do lunch. Like if we haven't booked lunch, we're not doing lunch. Like if you're going to pray for someone, write in your phone or write in a piece of paper and then text them a week later. How are you doing? How can I pray for you? Say I'm sorry you're going through this. Say something, say anything. Do you know what those last two are? You're literally in front of someone and you're like, how can I help? What do you need? You're just physically there. By the way, there is nothing you can say that will fix everything. It's John Deloney who just says things like grief needs a witness. It's the idea of someone is just standing there. I don't know if anyone's ever had to go to like a visitation the day before a funeral. And when you're there, we're in these lines, no one knows what to do, and you get up and you say, I'm so sorry. There's nothing to say. Like we hug, we love, we're there. We're there supporting you with what's going through. It's the exact same with this. Give them a hug, ask how's your struggle going. And you might be reading the bottom one going, shawarma is healing? Yes, it is. Darkest day of my life, somebody brought me a chicken shawarma. This is from if you're ever in Ontario and you're going through Ajax, there's a place called Pita Delights. They're Arab Christians from Nazareth. When I walk in, they call me Brother Brett. It's one of my favorite places. Someone bought me one and passed it to me at home, and I took a bite, and I remember in all my unwellness just saying, there's something about food. What I miss most from growing up is potluck Wednesdays, where we all brought food and we all ate together. There's something incredibly powerful about just having a meal together. It reminds me of 2 Corinthians 1:3, who comforts us in all our troubles. Why? So that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Just the idea of if your friend's struggling, but get them what they want. If it's a pizza, if it's a coffee, it doesn't matter. But it just means that you're actually there. Some thoughts. Dr. Dan, an amazing person to follow, especially for the parents in the room. But he says we need to help, and let's change children to everyone. We need to help everyone understand that the clouds of their emotions can and will roll on by. I'm so sorry if you're unwell today. But doesn't mean tomorrow will be. And then maybe the next, this is just the idea of things will change. And if one door isn't working, choose another. If what you're doing isn't working, choose another. Right? This is this never-ending choosing another conversation. And so if one counselor isn't working, choose another. If you're on meds, if it's not working, choose another. If what you're doing isn't working. There's an older musician named Bruce Cockburn. Most of you won't know him. Some of the adults might. Bruce once said this: we need to kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight. It is such a powerful conversation. This is a battle. I often sometimes say this is war, but I don't see that. When I sit with clients, how's your exercise? I don't do any. How's your social supports? I don't have any. How's your struggle with this? We're not doing even the most basic things in life. I'm talking to a 15-year-old girl once, 15? grade 9, grade 10. I'm at a school and a young girl comes up and she talks about her struggles, and I'm like, there's a guy and a girl, there's 2 counselors at the school, you should go see one of them. So she writes me a few days later and says, I went to see her and I hate her. And I said, so go see the guy. And she writes me back a few days later and says, I hate him. And I'm like, okay, this is great. And so I wrote her back and I said, I'm never going to stop telling you to go see someone else. And she replies, I'm never going to stop telling you how much I hate them. I'm like, oh, this is not the battle I thought I'd be getting into. 15 counselors later, she walked into a friend of mine's office and my friend said, what's up? And she said, in that moment, I knew she was the one. It actually had nothing to do with the counselors. She wasn't ready. Never, never give up hope. Winston Churchill talked about never, never, never give up. It's a very side note. If you're ever at the place of you're like, I can't do this anymore, and you begin to think of giving up, please talk to an adult. Please talk to anyone around you. Some resources, and we're done. My website's just my name. It's brettallman.com. I'm a curator. I'm a collector. I have 1,500 links on my website and growing. I take the best content. If you click blog and then you went to mental health or media or whatever it might be, I find the best content I can find and I just serve it up. At the very top is my social media, and in the middle of that is my Amazon A. If you click on that, you'll find all the books that I suggest. And as I said in the first service, there's one of those links that actually says books I paid my kids to read. My wife and I began to do this when my kids were in grade 8 and grade 9, around then, and so there's some really interesting books even for you guys. I have lots of other talks. This talk, I have my talk on pornography. By the way, there's nothing graphic about that, but it's how do we as Christians connect our ancient faith with some of these struggles, and we can do it. And I have a talk called Dating for Life. If you go on my dating talk, this is looking at 8 questions. Now, there's an older version and a newer version. If you go on and I have black hair with blue lowlights underneath it, it's a long time ago. Wrong talk. This one has lots of lights and there's wood paneling behind me, but it's just, what is dating? How do we date? Like all those kinds of things. And I do have all the talks that I do in small group series, and your church, just for the adults in the room, has the parenting and men on Right Now Media. And this afternoon, we're doing my media talk. I do think we should read. This afternoon, we'll address that 57% of North Americans read 0 books this year. 0. People now say books are boring, but they are boring if all you're used to is 8 seconds on Reels. So Anxious Generation is one of the big ones today on technology, but I love this guy, Johann Hari. Johann talks about we've lost connections with lost connections with nature, lost connections with purpose. We can add in our faith as faith-based people, and the ripple effect, sleep better, eat better, move better, think better. And you might be saying, why am I promoting a book that says parenting to students? This is a handbook I wrote. It's 7 books or more in one. The first 7 chapters are for parents. But the last 9 chapters are 9 mini books in and of themselves, with the largest of the whole book being on mental health. And these are written for anyone, junior high, high school, young adult, parents, anyone. There's a study guide with questions. I read my own book on Audible. And as we come to the end of this conversation, first off, I just say this, I really hope this isn't the end. This is 30 minutes. The goal today is to be a catalyst, right? It's like we're lighting a fire and we're beginning discussions and conversations on this. For you, as families, as churches, going back to your schools, whatever it might be. And I end everything with 2 thoughts. The first is from the authors Chip and Dan Heath, and they say this: your life, your faith, and my favorite today, your media thoughts are built on moments. It's just a moment today. And one of my favorite authors is a guy named John Maxwell. John says this: when you are challenged by anyone, anytime, any place, what is one thing? What is one thing I said this morning? And you're like, that's for me. That's where we start. But here's the hardest part. He says, you only have 3 days to actually do something about it, or you never will. And so in the next 3 days, choose something from this discussion today and look at being better in our mental health. There's a book called Atomic Habits, which talks about being 1% better. Let's just look at this small incremental growth. This afternoon at 2:30, I'm doing my talk on media. I will be at the back and talk to anybody who wants to. Thank you so much for having me, and hope you have a great week. Thank you. Bye-bye.